Welcome to Code Review, Pseudo-Elements, Pseudo-Classes, and Data Attributes. And in this video, I'm going to start with what is a pseudo-class? A pseudo-class is a keyword added to a selector that specifies a special state of that selected element. For example, the first child pseudo-class represents the first element among a group of sibling elements. Now on the screen, I have 4 boxes. And what I like to do here is when I hover over any of these boxes, which have a subcontainer class, I like to change the border color and the font color. And I'm going to use a pseudo class for this. So I'm going to head on over to the code editor. Now I mentioned earlier, this is a subcontainer class. So what I'm going to do is start by writing subcontainer, and I'm going to focus on the pseudo class hover state. So :hover. So essentially what I'm stating here is whenever the mouse hovers over any element that has the subcontainer class, anything with the subcontainer class, trigger this CSS. What CSS? What I'm about to write inside. First, I'm going to do a border color, and I'm going to give it a hex code of a bright green. And then I'm going to put in color to change the font color, and I'm going to go ahead and choose yellow. And now I want to head on back over to the browser. Now back over at the browser, I'm going to hover over this first box. And on the screen, we can see that that hover pseudo class is going into effect. And the border color is changing to green, and the font color has changed to yellow. Now that is what a pseudo class is. But there's also a pseudo element. And pseudo element is a keyword added to the selector that lets you style a specific part of the selected element. For example, if I use the first line pseudo element, it will style the first line of any multi-line text, such as a paragraph. Now I'm going to head back over to the code editor, and in the index.html file, inside of each subcontainer, there's a h1 element named box 1, box 2, box 3, box 4. And what I like to do here is I like to style just the first letter of this h1 element. So now I'm going to head over to the CSS file. Now in the CSS file, I'm going to start by typing subcontainer : and here is a list of potential pseudo elements that I could use. And I'm going to go ahead and select first letter. And to make this stand out a little bit more, I'm going to give this a color of teal and a font family of cursive. Now, you may be asking yourself, why didn't I put subcontainer H1 first letter versus subcontainer first letter? Well, the H1 is the first child element within the subcontainer. And that first letter inside of the H1 is the first letter within the subcontainer element. So it's going to come out the same. And that's how first letter works. And that's how a lot of these pseudo elements work. So now that this is done, I'm going to head on over back to the browser. And we can see that the letter B is teal, and it is in a different font style, cursive, compared to the rest of the font being used in the word box. And now I want to transition back to the code editor and talk about data attributes. In HTML, we have attributes. For example, class is an attribute for CSS targeting. Well, there's this special attribute called data, and it usually starts with data hyphen and then the attribute name. And this allows you to store extra information on standard HTML elements. Now, in this H1 area, I'm going to make a data attribute called data hyphen secret, and I'm going to set it equal to my secret message. Now I'm going to go over to the CSS, and I'm going to use a CSS attribute selector. So this is going to be new. And I'm going to start with H1. And the way we select a attribute is we use square brackets. So square brackets, and the attribute I'm going to select is data-secret. And what I'm targeting is any attribute, which there's only one, that is attached to a H1 element named data-secret. And what I'm going to do is take the information from data secret and combine this with what was shown earlier in the video, pseudo-classes and pseudo-elements. So I'm going to start with colon hover, colon after. So my expectations here is that when I hover over this H1 element, after the H1 element, I'm going to insert some content. And how do I insert content? By writing the CSS content property here. But I have to take this a step further. And with content, I need to use this ATTR, which is short for attribute. And what I have to do is put the attribute name inside of this parentheses in order to extract the data that's inside of data secret. So data-secret. And now I'm going to do a couple things here to kind of make this stand out. I'm going to give this a margin top of 10 pixels, and I'm going to give this a color of violet. Now I'm going to test this out in the browser. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to hover over the H1, and we see this awkwardly placed my secret message in violet. And this is an example of how to extract information from a data attribute. Thanks for watching and happy coding.